We are anonymous. A name whispered on the wind, a face seen in every shadow. We are the ghosts in the machine, the righteous anger of the forgotten. For years we've targeted the corrupt, the powerful, the ones who believe they are above accountability. But this mission, this was different. This wasn't just about data or money. This was about something far more sinister, something that preyed on the innocent. The target was Playtime Company, a corporation that built its empire on colorful toys and the laughter of children. Or so the world thought. Whispers of its closure a decade ago were just the beginning. The story of staff disappearing overnight was the loose thread we decided to pull. Our mission was simple, yet profoundly dangerous. Infiltrate the abandoned Playtime Company factory, uncover its secrets, and broadcast them to the world. Live. We knew something was wrong there. The rumors were too persistent, too dark to be dismissed as mere urban legends. They spoke of living toys, of experiments gone awry. We assembled a 3-person team for the physical breach. Zero, our tech expert and my right hand. Glitch, our nimble infiltrator and scout. And me, Cypher, the team lead, and the one holding the camera. We were equipped with body cams, encrypted cloud syncing drives, and a direct line to our network. The plan was to go in, document everything, and expose the truth, whatever it might be. We prepared for security guards, for decaying infrastructure, for booby traps left by a paranoid corporation. We did not prepare for the reality waiting inside those brightly colored walls. The world knew Playtime Co. for toys, like Huggy Wuggy and Poppy Playtime. They were icons of childhood joy. We were about to show the world their true faces, the monstrous forms they took after the factory doors closed for the last time. Our broadcast began with a simple message, our iconic mask filling the screen. Playtime is over. The truth is coming. And then, the feed switched to my first-person view as we approached the looming silent factory. The air grew heavy as we neared the entrance, a giant, smiling flower painted above the main doors. It felt less like a welcome and more like a warning, a gaping maw ready to swallow us whole. Zero was monitoring all signals, reporting an eerie silence. No electronic security, no heat signatures, nothing. It was a ghost factory. Glitch, ever the optimist, joked that maybe the stories were just stories, but I felt it, a deep gnawing dread that settled in my gut. A feeling that we were not just breaking into a building, we were stepping into a tomb, and the dead were still very much awake. The world was watching, and we were about to give them the show of a lifetime. The main gate was rusted shut, a relic of a bygone era of fun. Glitch made short work of it, her lock-picking skills slicing through the corroded metal like it was nothing. The screech of the gate opening was the first sound to break the oppressive silence. It echoed across the overgrown parking lot, a mournful cry that seemed to travel for miles. Once inside the perimeter, the factory proper loomed over us. Its windows were like vacant eyes, dark and unblinking. The cheerful paint was peeling, revealing a grim, industrial skeleton underneath. It was a place where happiness had come to die. We found our entry point through a ventilation shaft on the side of the building, just as our satellite intel had suggested. It was a tight squeeze. Glitch went first, her lithe frame disappearing into the darkness. I followed, my camera's night vision painting the cramped metal tunnel in eerie greens and blacks. Zero came last, his pack scraping against the sides. The air inside was thick with the smell of dust, rust, and something else. Something sweet and cloying, like old plastic and decay. It was the scent of forgotten things, and it filled our lungs with every breath we took. Dropping down into the factory's reception area was like stepping into a frozen moment in time. Desks were still littered with papers, a half-empty coffee mug sat on a counter, and a banner reading, "Welcome to Playtime," hung crookedly from the ceiling. But the centerpiece of the room was what made our blood run cold. A towering statue of Huggy Wuggy stood in the center, its signature blue fur matted with dust. Its painted smile seemed too wide, its black eyes fixed on us with a glassy, lifeless stare. It was just a statue. I repeated that to myself over and over again. Just a statue. Our body cams were rolling, capturing every detail. The live feed was stable, and thousands were already tuned in, the viewer count climbing exponentially. Zero set up his portable relay, ensuring our connection to the cloud remained unbroken. "Everything we record from here on out is saved," he whispered, his voice tense. "No matter what happens to the hardware, the data gets out." It was a grim assurance, but a necessary one. We were ghosts, and our only legacy would be the information we could leave behind. We moved out of the lobby, our boots crunching on fallen debris, deeper into the heart of the factory. The silence was our constant companion, but we all felt it. We were being watched. The first area we explored was the main toy production floor. Conveyor belts snaked through the massive room like dormant metal pythons. Half-finished toys lay scattered everywhere, their plastic eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The assembly lines were frozen mid-process, a testament to the suddenness of the factory's demise. It was here, in this vast, echoing chamber, that we saw him again. Another Huggy Wuggy. This one not a statue. It was slumped against a wall at the far end of the room, its long arms dangling lifelessly. It looked like just another forgotten piece of merchandise, bigger than the rest, but just as inanimate. Glitch, confident and curious, decided to get a closer look. "I need to get a sample of the material," she said, her voice clear on our comms. "Something about this fur feels organic." She approached the blue behemoth cautiously, her multi-tool ready. Zero and I kept our distance, providing cover, though we weren't sure from what. As Glitch reached out to touch its arm, a low hum filled the air. The factory lights flickered to life, casting long, dancing shadows across the room. The power was back on. And the Huggy Wuggy that was slumped against the wall was suddenly gone. Panic set in. "Where did it go?" I yelled, my camera panning wildly across the now empty space. Zero was frantically checking his gear. "I don't know." There was no energy signature, no movement. We were in a maze of machinery, and something very large was now hiding in it. Glitch was frozen in place, her face pale in the flickering light. We could hear it then. A soft shuffling sound coming from the darkened quarters of the conveyor system above us. It was toying with us, hunting us. The live feed was capturing my frantic breathing, the shaky camera work, the pure undiluted terror of the moment. Then we saw it. A flash of blue in the vents of Brr. Huggy Wuggy's head poked out, its once friendly smile now a horrifying rictus filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth. It wasn't a toy, it was a predator. It let out a screech that was a mix of distorted audio and raw, animalistic rage. We ran. Glitch, Zero and I bolted through the factory, the colossal creature, in hot pursuit. Its long limbs allowed it to crawl through the vents and drop down with terrifying speed. It was a relentless, nightmarish chase, broadcast live for a horrified world to see. This was the first secret of Playtime Co. Their creations were alive, and they were hungry. We managed to trap Huggy Wuggy by causing a section of the conveyor system to collapse, burying it under tons of steel. We didn't wait to see if it was finished, we just ran. Our escape led us deeper into the facility, into a section marked Game Station. The aesthetic changed from industrial grime to garish primary colors. It was a twisted mockery of a child's play area, and it was here that we met our next host. A voice, saccharine and high-pitched, echoed from hidden speakers. "Ooh, new playmates! It's been so long! I want to play a game!" From the ceiling, a figure descended. It was pink, spindly, and spider-like, with a tangled mess of what looked like hair and large green eyes. Its limbs stretched and contorted in ways that were physically impossible, unnervingly elastic. This was Mommy Longlegs. She didn't seem immediately hostile like Huggy Wuggy. She seemed playful, but it was the cruel playfulness of a cat with a mouse. "The rules are simple," she cooed, her voice dripping with a sinister sweetness. "You play my games, and you get to live a little longer. But if you break the rules, Mommy will make you a part of her web forever." The games were sadistic variations of classic children's pastimes, a deadly game of statues where movement meant being snatched by one of her stretching limbs. A memory game where failure caused the floor to drop away into a dark abyss. We were forced to play, our lives hanging by a thread. Glitch's agility got us through the physical challenges, while Zero's quick thinking solved the puzzles. All the while, Mommy Longlegs watched us, her cheerful demeanor slowly cracking to reveal a bitter, seething rage. She spoke of betrayal, of being left behind by the humans she once trusted. The final game was a chase through a maze of maintenance tunnels. Mommy Longlegs, her facade of playfulness completely shattered, pursued us with terrifying speed. Her limbs shot out from around corners trying to ensnare us. "You can't just leave me here," she shrieked, her voice distorted with fury. "I won't let you!" It was during this chase that we lost Glitch. A pink elastic hand shot out from a grate and wrapped around her leg. She screamed. I turned back, but Zero pulled me away. "We can't! It's too late!" I could only watch on my monitor, as Glitch's cam feed spun wildly before cutting to static. The world watched one of us die, and the myth of Playtime Co. died with her. Heartbroken and shaken, Zero and I pushed forward, driven by a desperate need to make Glitch's sacrifice mean something. The path Mommy Longlegs had forced us on led to an entirely new section of the factory, one that wasn't on any of the initial blueprints we had. The sign above the door read Play Care, a fully functioning orphanage built right into the heart of the facility. The first area was a schoolhouse. It was pristine, unnervingly so. Desks were arranged in neat rows, chalkboards were covered in lessons, and at the front of the classroom stood a mannequin. A teacher. As we stepped inside, the doors slammed shut behind us. The lights flickered and the mannequin's head snapped towards us. Its face was a cracked porcelain mask, its painted-on smile a grotesque slash. It moved with a stiff, jerky motion, a pointer stick held tightly in its hand. This was Ms. Delight. Her voice crackled through a speaker in her chest, a distorted recording of a stern schoolmistress. "Welcome, children. It is time for your lesson. Today's lesson is on obedience." She began to stalk towards us, her movements unnatural and terrifying. Ms. Delight was a different kind of threat. She wasn't a giant beast or a flexible monster. She was a relentless, unthinking enforcer. She hunted us through the classrooms and hallways of the school, her pointer stick whistling through the air. Any attempt to fight back was met with surprising strength. We discovered her weakness by accident. Zero, in a panic, knocked over a generator, and the main lights went out, leaving only the dim emergency lights active. In the shadows, Ms. Delight froze, becoming completely still. She was afraid of the dark. We used this to our advantage, navigating the school by staying in the shadows, moving from one dark corner to another. It was a tense game of cat and mouse, using circuit breakers to control the lights, creating paths of darkness to sneak past her. But in one hallway, our luck ran out. Zero stumbled, making a noise that drew her attention. He tried to make a run for the next shadow, but the lights flickered back on for a split second. It was long enough. Ms. Delight lunged, faster than we'd seen her move before. Her cam feed showed a cracked, smiling face, then a sickening crunch, then darkness, and then there was one. I was alone. The comms were silent, filled only with the static of two lost comrades. My live feed was my only companion, a silent audience to my terror. Grief and fear warred within me, but I had to keep going. I had to get the full story out. I escaped the school and found myself in a twisted, hellish version of a playground. This area was dedicated to the smiling critters, a line of toys I vaguely remembered. The walls were covered in their cartoon images, but the playground itself was a wreck, and a foul, sweet smell hung in the air. It was the smell of poppy gas, a powerful sedative. I found one of the critters, but it was not smiling. Chained to a wall in a small cell was DogDay. Half of his body was gone, and his voice was weak, filled with agony. He wasn't aggressive, he was a victim. "You have to get out of here," he rasped, his eyes wide with fear. "He can see you. 1,000,000 pairs of eyes are watching." He told me about the prototype, Experiment 1006, a being of pure malice that now ruled the factory. And he told me of its enforcer, its god CatNap. DogDay was the last of the smiling critters who had dared to defy the prototype. This was his punishment. As he spoke, small, horrifying versions of the other critters began to crawl out of the darkness. They swarmed him, their tiny hands and teeth tearing at his remaining flesh. They see him as their god. DogDay screamed in his final moments. "In return for their worship, they are fed. You must find Poppy. End this madness." His feed, which I had managed to patch into my system, went dark. I ran, the image of his horrific death burned into my mind. I was now being hunted by CatNap, a creature that commanded an army and was worshipped as a deity. The chase was a blur of red smoke and terror. CatNap was a phantom, a purple creature that could seemingly teleport through the clouds of poppy gas it emitted. It was a relentless hunter, its sole purpose to eliminate heretics like me. I could hear it whispering in the vents, its voice a low, rumbling purr that promised eternal sleep. I had to stay awake, had to fight the sedative effects of the gas. The live feed was shaky, my vision blurring at the edges. The world was watching me slowly succumb, a lone survivor fighting a god in its own temple. My mission was no longer just about exposure. It was about survival. My desperate flight from CatNap led me down into the deepest, most sterile part of the factory, the laboratories. This was the place where it all began. The atmosphere shifted from playful horror to cold, clinical evil. The walls were white tile, stained with things I didn't want to identify. Medical equipment lay overturned, and containment cells lined the hallways, their glass shattered from the inside. It was in one of the main observation rooms that I found the video logs. I huddled under a console, my heart pounding, and began playing them back, streaming them directly to the cloud. The face of a man in a lab coat filled the screen. Dr. Harley Sawyer. He spoke with a chilling detachment about Experiment 1006, the prototype. He described it as a creature of unparalleled intelligence and aggression, capable of mimicking voices and building complex machinery from spare parts. The logs documented the factory's darkest secret: the Bigger Bodies Initiative. Playtime Co. wasn't just making toys, they were using orphans from the playcare as the living consciousness for larger, organic versions of their mascots. They were transferring human minds into monstrous bodies. The recordings were horrifying. I watched footage of the experiments, of children being led into operating theaters, their frightened faces haunting my screen. Dr. Sawyer spoke of them not as children, but as variables, as components. "We are placing them in a better place," his voice echoed in the silent lab, a sickening justification for his atrocities. The toys' hatred, their rage, it all made sense now. Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Long Legs. They weren't just monsters, they were victims, their minds trapped in prisons of flesh and fur, twisted by pain and a lust for revenge against their creators. The final log I found was from the day everything fell apart. It was chaos. Alarms blared and screams echoed in the background. Dr. Sawyer was frantic, speaking of the prototype's escape. "It's using the others. It's organized them," he yelled. "It's leading them in a massacre." The log cut out as the sound of tearing metal and a blood-curdling scream filled the audio. The prototype had unleashed the toys upon the staff. I had found the truth, a truth more monstrous than any of the creatures I had faced. And I knew the prototype was still here, watching me, the master of this entire, horrible orchestra. The event Dr. Sawyer described in his final moments had a name. I found it etched onto a plaque in a desecrated memorial hall: the Hour of Joy. It wasn't a celebration, it was the name the toys gave to their uprising, the single hour of bloody, brutal vengeance they enacted upon every single employee in the factory. The walls were still stained with the evidence of that day. It was a coordinated, intelligent attack, orchestrated by one mind, the prototype. It had turned the factory's creations against their makers with ruthless efficiency. I learned that the prototype, Experiment 1006, was unique. While other experiments were transfers of a single consciousness, the prototype was an amalgamation. It was a living collection of parts, both mechanical and organic, capable of absorbing other beings and adding their strengths to its own. Its only known original part was a single, skeletal metallic arm. It was the ultimate survivor, the apex predator of this twisted ecosystem. It controlled the others not just through fear, like CatNap, but through a promise of freedom through vengeance. It was the revolution's leader, the factory's new king. My broadcast was now reaching millions. The information I was uncovering was spreading like wildfire across the internet. The video logs of Dr. Sawyer, the evidence of the orphan experiments, the story of the Hour of Joy. It was all out there. I found a small doll in a glass case, a doll named Poppy. The recording suggested she was the first successful experiment, a key to everything. DogDay had told me to find her, that she could end the madness. But as I approached her case, a new fear took hold. Was she another victim, or was she part of the prototype's plan? In this place, trust was a luxury I could not afford. The factory seemed to come alive around me, groaning and shifting as if the prototype itself was watching my every move. It knew I was broadcasting its secrets. It knew I was exposing its kingdom. I felt its presence not as a physical entity, but as an overwhelming intelligence pervading the entire structure. 1,000,000 pairs of eyes, as DogDay had said. The smaller toys, the smiling critters that had devoured DogDay, began to skitter in the shadows, their eyes glowing. They weren't just watching, they were herding me, guiding me towards a final confrontation. The prototype wanted to meet the one who had dared to reveal its world. My final moments in the factory were a mad dash for an old freight elevator Zero had marked on our map before he died. The full might of the factory was bearing down on me. CatNap's purple gas flooded the corridors and the chittering of the smaller toys was everywhere. I didn't stop for Poppy. I didn't try to be a hero. My mission was complete. The data was out. The only thing left was for the messenger to survive. I slammed the button for the elevator, its rusty doors slowly grinding shut as a horde of monstrous toys lunged for the opening. The ride up was the longest minute of my life. I could hear them scratching and clawing at the doors, their shrieks of rage echoing up the shaft. I burst out onto the factory roof, the cold night air hitting my face for the first time in what felt like an eternity. I ran, not looking back, scaling the perimeter fence and disappearing into the woods beyond. I didn't stop running until the sun came up, until the sounds of the city replaced the silence of the forest. I was out, I was alive, I was the only one. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for what remained of the Playtime Cobra's brand. Our live broadcast, authenticated by the anonymous network, was undeniable. The world saw the living toys, the death of Glitch and Zero, the horrifying video logs of Dr. Sawyer, and the truth about the orphans. Playtime Co. wasn't just a failed company, it was a house of horrors built on the suffering of children. Investigations were launched, old executives were arrested, and the company's legacy was forever rewritten from one of joy to one of unimaginable evil. My final broadcast was from an undisclosed location a week later. I appeared on screen, my face hidden, my voice altered. I told the world everything I saw, honoring the sacrifice of Zero and Glitch. I warned them that while the factory was now quarantined by federal agents, the master of that place, the prototype, was still alive. It is intelligent, it is patient, and it is learning. My work as Cypher is done, but the burden of what I saw will remain forever. We exposed the monsters in the toy box, but I know, deep in my soul, that the most dangerous one is still waiting, building its strength and planning its next move. And this time, it knows the world is watching.